Okay. So here's the thing. The Democrats are responsible for what's going on. And that's who we're supposed to be protesting against. That's where our messages should be directed. In my opinion, let me share my perspective, but it requires a little context. So first, in any society, in any group, in any tribe, in any family, there's always going to be a group of people who like things the way they are, and perhaps might even prefer that they go back to the way things were. No shame, no blame, no judgment. We just know that that's the case. Oftentimes, it's folks that have lived the longest. Not always. But, I'm sure people have recognized that that's just sort of can be logic. We all feel that as we grow older. Sometimes we are nostalgic and wish that things were the way they used to be. And we're okay with how they are now. So I like to call those people backwards facing people. They're facing backwards. They're nostalgic, and they'd like to keep things the way they are, and they even preferred them. Now, in some cases, it's just genuine nostalgia. I remember it used to be this way, and that was great. Sometimes it's for spiritual reasons or religious reasons that people feel compelled that we should be doing things a certain way that they used to be. And then there are the backwards-facing people that are doing it because of the privilege. They have privilege or used to have more privilege, and they don't want to lose that privilege. And if they've lost some of the privilege, they want to get it back. Now, let's again just stop and say that that's human nature. No judgment, no shame, no blame. Think about it for a second. If you're watching this, just like myself, you've got certain privilege. You probably have privilege of a home, maybe a car, a phone, a device, a job, money, refrigerator, food. You have certain privileges. Not everybody has those privileges. And some people have more privilege than you and I. Now, when we're born into certain privilege. Aren't we? We don't know it at the time. I mean, no judgment, no shame, no blame. But whatever privilege level we were born into, we want to stay there. Or even improve it, right? Who recognizes their state of privilege and goes, gosh, I'd sure like to lose some of these privileges. I can't wait to drop some of this privilege. That's just human nature, right? For all of us. Who watching this and listening this and can make a list of their privileges would go, boy, I'd like to have less. No. So we can understand then that the people that used to have more privilege want to go back to that. And keep in mind that no matter what level of privilege you were born into or experiencing in your life, even amongst the super wealthy or super greedy, as I like to think of it now. There was a great Facebook post or meme that said, These aren't the wealthiest men on the planet, they're the greediest. True. Hoarders. Anyway, even amongst them, there is always someone that has more privilege than them. And if you're watching and listening, if you're like me, I like my privileges, and I'm enticed to want more. Because I know others have more privileges, and it would seem to make life better. So, whoever was most privileged by the previous way of doing things in any society, here or Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, you're going to have what I call backwards facing people for various reasons. Nostalgia, religious reasons. It's supposed to be like that, according to my religion. But a lot of it is privilege in today's world. So, given that those people will always exist, and that we understand why, don't we? Because we acknowledge and appreciate our privilege, and we don't want to lose what we have. So why would they? So, every society, backwards facing people. Now, let's talk about the forward facing people. Everyone else in the family, especially the younger ones, recognize we'd like to do things differently. We see some change. In some cases, it might appear to reduce the privilege of the other folks, but really it's mostly sharing it. So, you've got all the other members of the family, different ages, perspectives on how to go forward. They recognize things need to change. Now, amongst that group of forward-facing people, you're going to have a wide, diverse spectrum of opinion and perspectives. From conservative, I kind of like the way it is, but maybe a little incremental change, to progressive. We need to change a lot now. And it's okay. All those voices deserve to be heard. Now, hopefully you'd agree that all those folks should be compromising and discussing a way forward. And when they do that, they find that together they can agree on a moderate way forward. And that together they always are able to perform a coalition of interests that is much larger than the backwards facing people. And this is what happens in Europe. The reason why Europe has the things that all of us want, and if you Google it, poll after poll shows the majority of Americans agree on most things. Here's the sunset. Most of us agree on most things. So, in Europe, though, something interesting happened last century. Nations, societies were destroyed. Old agreements were ripped up. New, modern agreements started from scratch that allow there to be a backwards-facing party or group, and then multiple forward-facing people. And those together always outvote and outnumber the backward-facing. And so you'll see that modern societies agree. In general, we want to protect the environment. We want safe, logical forms of gun control. We all want healthcare that is as low cost as possible and as high impact as possible. We want education that is as low cost as possible and high impact. We recognize that we all benefit together from having healthy people and education. So in Europe, why do they have all those things that we don't? Women's rights, workers' rights, environment, gun control, and all of the different things that most all Americans agree on. Healthcare. It's not free healthcare. Instead, it's not for profit. And the math just shows, there's no opinion on this, the math shows that if we all pitch in to a shared healthcare economy through form of taxes, we get a much better rate of return, and that's what's happening all across the world. The majority of nations have this in different forms. So it's not free, but it is much cheaper and much better, and the numbers show this. Every country, modern country, has way better outcomes and way cheaper prices. The US is the worst on outcomes, highest on price. So if you explain to people, look, instead of doing it this way, if we just collect our taxes, do it, not for profit, boom, imagine how much healthier we'd be. Imagine how much better America would be if we had all that money back in our pockets that we're wasting on useless healthcare. And if we were healthier, happier. Anyway, the reason that they have some of that stuff in Europe is because they rewrote agreements. And these new agreements, they recognized and began the benefit of more than two parties. So that you have your backwards facing. Go ahead and face backwards, y'all. The rest of us are facing forwards. We're going to negotiate together, and we outnumber you. You're coming along whether you like it or not. Now in the US, we have a stranglehold of two parties. And they want it that way. The Democrats want it that way. They're the ones that have a stranglehold on the future. The GOP has now become the backwards-facing party for reasons of privilege and or religion and or nostalgia. So they're facing backwards, it's fine. We're such a big, diverse country, though, we deserve more than one giant, big, fat, stupid party that's trying to control the future. Because what happens when you do that, you force all those visions into a system that is built to favor the backwards. This system was built by wealthy Englishmen. It was designed to only be run by them. It was designed for their benefits. And it was designed to allow the smallest amount of change possible. And so we have the Democrats, though, who refuse to allow a third party. They've worked with the GOP to keep people off the stage and keep them out of the elections. As a result, this is just logic. No shame, no blame, no judgment. As a result, if you try and hold all visions forward in a society under one group, by logic, it will only be able to accomplish what the most conservative members agree to. You can have Bernie AOC in there. They're only going to do what Joe Manchin agrees to. They're only going to agree what the most conservative members agree to. And so as a result, you have a Democratic Party that refuses to, number one, even talk about changing the system that favors the backwards-facing agenda. And they refuse to break into two parties, one that would be progressive and one that would be moderate, which would hemorrhage GOP voters left and right. They're looking for a moderate party. I know you all know people like this. They're voting for Trump not because they like them or they like what's going on. They feel like they have no other option because they don't want to vote for Democrats that are pitched as AOC and Bernie. So you got this Democratic Party that keeps moderates away, but it doesn't get any of the progressive agenda done because it only gets done what the most conservative people can accomplish. Now, what does this have to do with ICE? I just read today that 7 House Democrats joined up with Republicans to forward an increase in the current budget. Those are the most conservative members of the Democratic Party. That's what the Democratic Party represents. They're fooling you into thinking they represent AOC and Bernie. Fooling me. They used to. They don't anymore. So my perspective is the Democrats are the ones that are complicit in seeing what's happening and putting their foot on the gas. Did you know that? That 7 House Democrats just voted to put their foot on the gas? That's what the Democrat Party stands for. So when we're out protesting, the signs shouldn't be picking fights with our neighbors and yelling at a GOP and a figurehead that doesn't care or listen to us. The signs should be saying, Democrats, grow a spine. Democrats, stop boosting ICE. The signs should say, vote for ICE, ? Lose a vote. And those 7 House Democrats will lose a vote. That's who we're protesting against, y'all. The Democrat Party. Because they're holding the future hostage. They refuse to break into 2. They refuse to allow a third party, and that's exactly what we need, because as soon as that happens, we will have a moderate, a progressive, and a backwards facing. And the moderate and progressive will always outvote the backwards facing. We'll recognize the problems with our system that favors the backwards facing and keeps it. Did you know that in the 3 elections Trump's been in, he's never broken 50% of the vote? 2 out of 3 times he's won. He's never gotten 50%. The system favors the minority, the backwards facing. I also got my mind blown last year when I found out that even though there's 100 senators and the balance of power goes backwards and forth, 53 this way, 47 that way, the GOP now controls, the GOP has the majority of the Senate. Google this. I found out you'd have to go back to 1992 to find a place and time in America when the GOP Senate majority actually represented a majority of the population of American citizens. They represent a minority. If you add up all the senators that are in office and the humans that they represent, they're also a minority. So the system is meant to keep the minority in power, and it needs to be broken. The Democrats don't want to fix it, and they have a stranglehold on the future. And because they try to keep it all under one umbrella, just remember, they will tickle us with their stories of progressivity because they don't have any choice, AOC and Bernie. But what other choice do you have? So they dangle it like, look how progressive we are. But honestly, think about it. They're only going to be as progressive as the most conservative members. And the most conservative members are not very progressive. Matter of fact, they said, you know what? I see what's happening. I think you should give more money to ICE. You know who did that? The Democrats are stepping their foot on the gas. That's who we need to be protesting. Uh-oh. They might think I have food and I'm going to be stampeded, so I got to go.